Welcome to our end-of-year review. Tonight we'll reflect on 2019 by bringing to you the most significant events captured by our news team this past year. There were some historic moments in 2019 which we covered extensively. Sadly, crime kept our news team very busy with too many sad stories of lives cut short. There were tragedies on the roadways across the country, and 2019 recorded the deadliest traffic accident in Belize's history. Belize may have been spared of hurricanes this year, but the prolonged drought we experienced came with its own agricultural disaster. That same dry weather and pollution punished Orangewa-Kenyans when the river got sick. There's so much more that dominated our headlines, from international scandals, significant court rulings, and concerns about the economy. But we'll start with a nod to our ever-growing social media audience. So many of our viewers have enjoyed the convenience of watching and sharing our stories online. So with cumulative views of 1.2 million, here are the top 2 most viewed news stories of 2019.
When I opened the door, they barged in. When they barged in on me, they tried to hold up my hands and said, "You're under arrest." When they said you were under arrest, I told them, "Arrest for what?" We were exchanging blows. I never gave up. They were kicking me up.
At the heart of the issue is that a homophobic lady did not want to sit next to an effeminate gay man and decided to start a quarrel, despite the fact that his friends had moved down to provide the lady with space. Separately, what I know from the eyewitness account, there's a lady across the boat who basically yelled, "Shut up, you." And no gay man will ever tolerate disrespect like that. And so he replied, "You can't shut me up," blah, blah, blah. And that's when the conflict ensued.
Children were not spared, as they too fell victims of the crime and violence pervasive in all corners. But despite adversity, they continue to hold their own.
Every time we are tired when we read, and it's hard to focus on your work when you're tired, but I know that the Ministry of Education find a place for us to stay in Dolores, but I choose not to go because I want you and the government to see what we always go through. But and not only during PSE we need help, because later on I'll be going to high school. If the government still not build our road, then we are going to suffer again.
There was a ray of hope at a special sitting of Parliament where the children had their say.
If 36.6 million US dollars and a grant of 25 million euros can be used to fix a road where an already established highway leads to, why can't 36 million US dollars and a grant of 25 million euros can be used to pave a road for the future of Belize, literally?
Why can't we foster the dreams of our young children by providing them with the necessary tools and training to go beyond what is expected?
Mr. Speaker, it is only fair to say that if we don't have high schools in our rural areas, it automatically disenfranchises children who can be in the school system. So my question in relation to all this would be, are we ready to provide the equal education opportunity that we speak about? Well, in accordance to Article 28 and the big education budget that exists, we are. Then the policies for access needs to be revisited and implemented properly. Rural children deserve an equal shot at success. So policymakers must remember the plight of rural children when developing policy solutions.
We do have a counselor here, Miss Roxanne Jones. She works with the students ongoing, From day one, she starts to work with the student or students. And for this school year, she has been extremely busy because it's a lot of students she has been working with whose sibling, whose parents, they have either been gunned down, stabbed, their homes have been burnt. You're left homeless, and we have been trying in all kinds of ways to assist and help them to get over it.
The nation was touched by baby Nelson Tavera, who unfortunately did not survive a rare condition.
3 meses, era de 48, era grandota, ¿sí ves? Grande. Yo con él veníamos de San Isidro a Villavista, una iglesia, estamos en una iglesia. Solo caminamos de aquí al portón y ya estamos cansados. Yo a veces y un rato él, estamos cansados porque después de esa operación se le iba bajando, me le sacaron un líquido amarillo, así como eso. Entonces, de 48 bajó a 38 y ahorita tiene 15.
Too many people lost their lives in traffic accidents. In late November, in one accident, as many as 7 persons, including 2 tourists, were killed on the George Price Highway.
This is a shock to the family. This is really horrific. It's a tragedy that we cannot prepare for adequately. We really have to just think about the impact that they have made, not just on the family, but on the community and by extension the country. They have both served tremendously to Belize. Lourdes is I call her a perfect blend between her mother, who was so compassionate, loving and kind, and her father, who was more militant and disciplinarian, and that really produced a very strong character in Lourdes, but well balanced. Eduardo was a real respected father, husband, a community person, but more importantly, as his role as the former Assistant Commissioner of Police, he was well respected by all ranks in the police department, and that same level of respect he takes into his home and his community.
It's no short of a miracle that both my driver and I could have walked out. And I had a fairly large cut, but it was the glass that cut my head. It wasn't that I burst my head. So I'm very grateful to our Almighty that was there to keep us on. And we have to learn from that one, seatbelt, and try to maintain your speed, because the faster you go, the bigger the danger that you have on the road. But presently, I'm feeling well. I had an unplanned almost 2 weeks of holiday. I have not had a holiday for a long time, and I was on the ground for 8 weeks, traveling all across the country during the village council election. So you count your blessings, and I feel that I'm very blessed and privileged to be here with you all today.
Tragedy struck families across the country when they lost loved ones in fires. A family also grieved the loss of 2 children caused by an explosion.
When I came, I see the disaster. House have burned, a vehicle had burned, and one of my child get burned in there. He was sleeping on a bunk bed, so nobody could see him, and that's how he get burned in the house.
Today, the rubble has been cleared by the united community who was forced to come to terms to a devastating fire that claimed the life of Elmer Chubb, a mechanic of San Jose Village who was staying at one of the 10 apartments.
He used to work at one of the, at Nando's garage. He was a mechanic. That's what he came here to do. And I know a lot of people speak very highly of him. He was a very helpful young man and willing to do anything. Very nice person.
A relentless crime wave swept across the country. Families lived in pain and anguish as life was cut short for their loved ones.
My mom called me after 10 and told me, "Girl, you know something?" I said, "What, ma?" He said, "Your pa dead." I said, "No, ma, my pa not dead." He said, "Yes, your pa dead." I said, "Where?" He said, "He got the key." And then they said that he dead. He said, "The young man, when I find me there with your pa," I said, "No, ma, my pa not dead because I want to feel it." And my mama said, "Yes, he dead." So when I gonna work this morning, I just have a vibes, and I say, if the my pa, they will find my pa today. Please let them find my pa today. And said so done, and I gone to the morgue, and the police come, and then they put it up on the Facebook, and I identified that that's my pa with a female tattoo on my right shoulder. I know that's my pa because I just feel my heart start to flatten when I see that picture, and I tell them that's my father. My father just leave 4 children behind, 2 girls and 2 boys.
It's a somber morning on campus as students and teachers are reeling from the shocking news of the school administrator's demise. The acting principal of Excelsior High School, Alaris Andruin, was shot and killed along with 2 others inside her family home on the George Price Highway on Tuesday. 3 bodies, including that of the 44-year-old educator, were discovered inside a bedroom. A Guatemalan national, 19-year-old Maria Juarez, and 39-year-old Vidal Antonio Yuman, a naturalized Belizean, were also victims of the grisly triple homicide.
There were constant landings of drug planes in remote areas in the north, west, and south. The cargo and arrests always eluded the police, except for a few instances. Police are moving swiftly with charges relating to one of the biggest drug busts in Belize. 4 of 6 foreigners were arraigned today for the drug plane that landed at an illegal airstrip off the coastal road on Sunday night. The group comprises of 2 Honduran nationals, a Mexican pilot, and a commercial pilot from Ecuador. 2 others were arrested in the drug bust but have not been charged. More than 1,000 pounds of the white stuff were confiscated by the police. The 4 who appeared in court are 69-year-old Mexican national of Tamaulipas, Miguel Cruz Meseguer, along with 30-year-old David Noe Orellana Discoa of San Pedro Sula, Honduras, businessman 43-year-old Carlos Humberto Enriquez Gomez, also from San Pedro Sula, and commercial pilot 43-year-old Juan Pablo Larrea Cruz from Ecuador. The duo not present in court are 31-year-old Alan Giovanni Mejia Tirnas of San Pedro Sula and 50-year-old Norlan Jose Carrasco Lopez, another Honduran national.
Once the order has been given, we escort the drugs from where it is kept to this location where it is being destroyed. The entities present, which is the judiciary, the justice of the peace, the police, and the forensic, is to ensure that there is transparency. So the drugs is being tested prior to it being destroyed. It is burst open so that when it is thrown in the fire, it can be consumed rapidly.
Despite the steps in place to expedite the process, burning 41 bales of cocaine brick by brick is an arduous process. One witness described it as playing bingo. Each parcel is called out by an alphanumeric label and then fed to the raging fire.
A prolonged drought wreaked havoc on many industries. Up north, sugar, corn, and other sectors were severely affected.
This is a field that is typically would have a lot of population, but because of the drought also you can see we don't have that much population on it. And then the length and the sharpness of the internodes is a physical indication of the drought effect on the sugar cane.
There are some farmers that really, depending on the land that they have their cane, there are some lowlands that have a lot of sun. Those canes were dry, and there are some highlands that also the cane was dry. And there are some farmers that have a partial loss of their cane. The situation is very hard at this point because we have canes that they should have had at least 7 feet in tall, and right now we only have some cane fields that are 2 feet, 3 feet in height. So it's a loss, a very huge loss for those farmers, for all of us, then for the industry. But most of all, I think the situation that this drought has caused us to be where we are is really hurting, it's really hurtful.
It started to grow really nice because we got to plant into moisture. We had about 2 inches of rain, and then the farmers all figured, okay, the rainy season has started, let's start to plant. And so everyone started to plant. And we stopped having rain right after planting, and we only got about half of our acres planted. Usually we run 500 acres of corn, and this year we have 280 acres planted. We would have liked to plant everything, but we were lucky that the rain stopped completely, that we didn't fill the farm with corn, because we'd be further in debt because of that, because now we only have 280 acres that's dying on us right now.
The bad state of the New River and Orange Walk affected residents for weeks, and schools along the banks had to close.
At very low levels, you will start to smell it. Less than 1 part per million. you'll start to smell that rotten egg smell. Once you reach around up to, I think, less than 100 parts per million, you will have some minor effects on the humans, like irritation to the throat, nausea, irritation to the eyes, and things like that.
There were many who died from complications related to dengue, while the issue of mental health moved to the front burner.
So we do have an increase actually from the preliminary data we have managed to take out. We have 789 confirmed cases, which would be a 10% increase average from what we reported exactly 1 week ago, with the Cayo district now having a higher increase in terms of numbers. So they are behind Corozal, the second highest number in terms of total cases. And we also have an increase, particularly in the pediatric population. We were asked last week about mortality cases. We don't have any in Belize. We are aware of a couple of severe cases at Karl Hirschner, and we have 49 of those, total 789 cases that are considered to be severe cases of dengue.
It is known that he is a mental patient. What we do know is that he was getting help. He was evaluated and was on treatment. I really can't say what triggered last night or what transpired. Whenever incidents like these transpired, it shakes the entire community. We believe that in a situation like this, it's something that triggered the patient, and it could have been worse, and we're very grateful that we didn't lose more than one person in this unfortunate event.
60-year-old Nestor Vasquez Jr., the namesake son of BTL chairman Nestor Vasquez and elder sibling of broadcaster Jules Vasquez, succumbed to injuries he received inside a holding cell last Thursday. Vasquez, who was mentally ill, was taken into police custody on the request of his younger brother pending treatment for his illness. While in detention, Vasquez was placed inside a lockup with another individual who also suffers from mental illness. That person has been identified as Colin Francis, who was previously arrested and charged for the attempted murder of nurse Augustina Eligio. As the year came to a close, the decline in economic activity in 2 consecutive quarters was signaling a recession. It raised concerns in the private sector and among consumers.
The government services continue to play a big role in these indicators. Government's borrowing and spending on what they call government services. And I think that the government has been driving our economy for too long. We know that many of our main industries have not been performing well. We know that our exports have been falling continually, and we know that our imports have been rising. So our trade imbalance has been growing, and that is not healthy in any economy.
It's kind of hard, right? And it depends where they come from to stretch your dollar. Because these times people don't have job, and if you do have a lead job, you still try to see how you stretch it. Well, I think if you spend your money right with the limit you make, and you stretch it and you go around to the different stores, they do have some things that you could afford, instead of, let's say, going the Chetomal or the Melchor.
It was a scandalous year as government reeled from scandal to scandal. One such was described as the biggest scam to be investigated by the U.S. Federal and Trade Commission.
According to the FTC's findings, Eco Futures Belize was also doing business on behalf of Sanctuary Bay, Sanctuary Belize, and the Reserve. The timeline, however, is not clear. The Cabinet Confidential Memo is dated 2011.
And that was what, in 2011? Right, and what was raised at the press conference was this allegation that Pookie or somebody like that had spoken to 4 ministers in 2014, who said they would raise the matter in cabinet. That absolutely, I maintain, did not happen. And what happened in 2011 had to do with Eco Futures Limited, even if it turns out that the development for which they got the concession in their names was to take place at a place called Sanctuary Bay. Not the same as Sanctuary Bay Estates or Sanctuary Bay Limited. So we're talking about two different things.
I give you, you give me. Those are the words that Senior Tax Administrator Ronaldo Verder told a U.S. real estate developer in August 2019. And those are one of the many words and actions that has landed the accused in a federal holdings facility in the U.S. Verder is accused of interference with commerce by means of extortion and attempted extortion after a criminal complaint was filed earlier this year. This is the affidavit filed by FBI Special Agent in support of the criminal complaint. The criminal complaint was made by Chris Williams, CEO of Legacy Global Development, a real estate company which has begun constructing Orchid Bay Resort in Corozal at a cost of $11.25 million.
We want everyone to prosper and experience their version of the good life.
Advertisements targeting U.S. investors were plastered across social media.
On the domestic front, government came under fire for writing off a loan to Joshua Perdomo, the son of the cabinet secretary. The loan was eventually paid off.
I saw the name Perdomo and I figured it must be a member of the Perdomo family, but that's an extended family. That's a large clan. So I did not know that it was actually the CABSEC's son. If I had known, I'm not quite sure what my reaction would have been, because I hear you and I accept that this write-off has left a very bad taste in the mouth of Belizeans.
The United Democratic Party is in search of a new leader. Patrick Faber and John Saldivar launched their bids.
Let the event today be the clear and resonant voice of our United Democratic Party all the way to the next general elections. We can take back Belize City. We can take back Corozal Town. We can even take back Orange Rock Town from the current leader of the People's United Party. To continue to win, we must make plain our intentions to choose wisely for the Belizean people. We can continue to win with the right leadership. Leaders who build consensus. Leaders who bring people together like today.
We must take to the streets to register new voters, to engage every Belizean, young and old, but especially the young. All this, ladies and gentlemen, will take energy that only one candidate in this race has and is willing to give. The victory in 2020 can only come if we are able to inspire a new generation that the UDP under Patrick Faber is the right choice for Belize. Hear me now when I say to you, my friends, I am up for that challenge.
The beheading of Pastor Llewellyn Lucas in 2016 made its way to the Supreme Court in Belmopan. The trial gripped the nation and finally ended with a guilty conviction for William Danny Mason and 4 other men. Justice was finally served for the Liu family.
It was very hard for our family, especially the way he died. We just happy that it's all over now and we got the justice we know he deserves. I am very happy, and like my mom always says, that God is in control, and we knew that this would have happened. We were convinced that my uncle would have received justice because of the person he was.
I feel for my client. He has been convicted of a very serious offense. The court has obviously considered all the evidence, and in its view, all 5 defendants have now been found guilty of murder.
A historic decision was reached in May. A referendum to take the Guatemalan dispute to the International Court of Justice got an overwhelming nod from Belizeans. Prior to the May 8th poll, we tested the pulse at two flashpoints, Arenal and the Sarstoon.
So what are we doing here? Ahead of the April 10th ICJ referendum, we decided to visit the farthest point south to test the waters, in a manner of speaking, to prove that the status quo and conflict between both countries over this controversial location persists. The GAF, as they are called, attempted to thwart our passage upriver. It wasn't until our vessel was joined by a Coast Guard launch that we were able to encircle Sarstoon Island with military escort from them. The journey around the 100-acre landmass was tense. The Coast Guard officers were outnumbered and outgunned by the Guatemalan armed forces, but their steely resolve was on full display and deserves commendation.
Hay que hacer la decisión para ver el futuro de ambos países, para reconocer la línea territorial de Belice y Guatemala.
Pero están diciendo tu presidente que Guatemala quiere más de medio de Belice.
Belice es Belice y es independiente.
Well, it was very curious that we were on Belizean waters and Guatemalan military officers came over and said we were in Guatemalan waters. It was amazing. I didn't expect that would have happened out there. And to see two military boats as opposed to just one that usually comes out there from the Guatemalan side. Luckily, we got to experience the actual BDF and the Coast Guard in action, and they came to our side and showed us that it is Belizean waters so far. I'm gratified to have seen that.
The total number of ballot papers counted is 96,417. Total votes cast for yes is 53,388. The total votes cast for no is 43,029. As a result, the majority of voters in the entire country have approved the proposition for the referendum on the territorial disputes.
The vote was yes, an emphatic yes. I am happy for that, in particular in the sense that there can be no doubt that the result is the will of the majority of the Belizean people. What I particularly want to do is to extend an olive branch. Perhaps that's not the best way to frame it. Extend the hand of friendship. Make this national unity outreach, which perforce must include the effort to involve the People's United Party in the way forward. It is Belize that is now to go to the ICJ. It is not the UDP, it is not the PUP, it is Belize. And the opposition, always the government in waiting, although if I were there, I wouldn't take that too very, very seriously, I mean, too literally. Yeah. But on a very serious note, it is critical that as we go to the ICJ, we've explained that it is a fairly long, perhaps a little bit slightly complicated process. We need to be on our P's and Q's and be sure from day one that we make no mistakes, that the various lawyers that we have already retained, the various legal chambers that are now in the service of the government of Belize, make no mistake, we will have to appoint an agent at The Hague to coordinate everything to make certain that papers are filed when they're supposed to be filed and steps taken when they're supposed to be taken.
Yesterday, the people spoke, and we in the People's United Party, as always, respect the will of the Belizean people. Once again, our process of representation by the people was carried out in a lawful manner with the usual positive energy, which is always displayed during these spirited campaigns. This referendum is indeed historic and momentous. And while some would have preferred a different outcome, we all know that respect for each other's differences should never get in the way of national unity. The collective wisdom of the people is that the time has come for us to settle this unfounded claim. As we work towards the next steps in this process, let us continue to live side by side peacefully and in the spirit of cooperation and friendship with the people of Guatemala. Let us continue our efforts through the confidence-building measures to deepen our relations with our neighbor. We reiterate our commitment to a truly bipartisan national team, working together in mutual respect to bring an end to the dispute with Guatemala.
As we close 2019, there are many lofty issues looming in the horizon. A new president takes over in Guatemala in January 2020. That country will also make its first submissions on the territorial dispute at the International Court of Justice. A number of court rulings are expected. One involves reported violations of the Finance and Audit Act, the so-called government slippage of over $100 million. Will the economy rebound after decline in economic activity in 2 consecutive quarters? And there is anticipation as a new government is to assume office as general elections take place sometime in 2020. All that and more as we look forward to the start of a new decade. Thank you for watching, and we look forward to you joining us again in 2020.